Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bible Tidbits YouTube channel. We have yet another update in my journey to learn biblical Hebrew. And I have a few questions that people have been asking in the comments of other videos in this series that we are going to tackle today. And we're going to start off with looking at those. So I am going to make myself small and open up a picture of my textbook here. So one question that I have been asked lately is kind of what was my strategy even to learn the alphabet and kind of how do I go about that? I know some people who try to pick up a language struggle with this part. I mean, this is the biggest part, and you got to make it through it. And in a biblical languages class, you have to make it through this very, very quick. In my Greek class, it was even faster than this. We were tasked to do the alphabet Monday, and by Thursday, we were translating words. So it wasn't, I mean, short mini sentences and just words. So we were very rapidly doing that. I think we quizzed on the alphabet on Tuesday of that class. So, I mean, you had essentially a day to get that down. Hebrew had a little bit longer, but here's the Hebrew alphabet in my textbook. And I will say this textbook, I was told by the professor, this Logos edition has some typos in it. So to just be cautious on that. But the alphabet looks good here for what we're looking at. And so as you see here, it's broken up into columns in my textbook. And most of the time, there will be these columns of some sort. But if there's not, you can break it up yourself. And I do this with vocabulary too, but I like to break things up into smaller chunks at a time. So I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and we covered 2 chapters in a single week. And there was like 30 or 40 vocab words for that week. And what I did is actually on my desk right here had it spread out my note cards, and I would put 5 vocab words in a stack. And I just scattered a whole bunch of stacks. And what I would do is I would sit there and go through those 5 words and over until I felt like I got them down to kind of shuffle them up in their group of 5. And I'd do those 5 words again until I just felt super confident. Then I'd put them down in their stack. Then I'd grab another 5 and just work on them. Then I'd take those 2 stacks and put them together. And then I'd work through those 10 words that I was confident in them individual. And then I'd shuffle them and, tripped out my camera there. Sorry. And I would just work through those smaller sections. I did the same with alphabet. And since my textbook had these columns, I just did it like that. So I did Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Daleth, Hey, Wow. Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Daleth, Hey, Wow. Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Daleth, Hey, Wow. Over and over and over until I had it. And then Zayin, Heth, Teth, Yod, Kaf, Lamed. Zayin, Heth, Teth, Yod, Kaf, Lamed. Over and over and over. And then Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Daleth, Hey, Wow. Zayin, Heth, Teth, Yod, Kaf, Lamed. Over and over and over. Then Mem Nun Sonic, Ayin Pe Sade. Mem Nun Samek, Ayin Pe Sade. Over and over. And then I would just kind of add. And I think with memorizing anything, this is how I do scripture memory as well. So I would break it up into chunk, very repetitious for the small chunk. Then I'd go to the next chunk, very repetitious. Then I would combine and just do that over and over and over. And then eventually in my textbook, I have the physical copy I use for most of my study here. But I would cover up the name of the word and I would just look, or of the letter, and then I would just look at the letters here. And so I'd be Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Daleth, Hey, Wow, over and over until I could see the letter and recognize it. And then after I did that, so that's just a lot of repetition with the alphabet until I could just say the whole thing over and over. And I'd done that a lot with looking at the letters. Then I would actually take a Hebrew Old Testament and I would just start skimming it. And I would skim it right to left because I knew that's how Hebrew is written. And I would just skim it and say Aleph and just be look for it off. I'm like, there's an Aleph. Then I skim it. Where's a Beth? There's a Beth. Okay, Gimel. Where's a Gimel? And I would just look for those letters as I skimmed it. And I would not stop. I would go back to the beginning and I would go until I found that letter. And that helped me to start recognizing them out of order or kind of just in their own, in context. And so then I could see them a little better. And by that point, too, I had vocab words I was working on, so I could see the letters in action a little bit as we were going there. But that's my strategy for vocab, for the alphabet, is just very repetitious and small chunks. The next part of the alphabet, which if you don't know, the Hebrew alphabet has final forms. So here we have the kaf, but if the kaf is at the end of a sentence, it looks like this right here. So it looks very, very different. And then we have the mem, and then the final form of the mem. So if it's the last letter, it looks like this: noon, noon, pe, pe, sade, sade. So you see, they look different. So how I would do this is the same thing, repetition. I'd be like cough, cough, mem, mem, noon, noon, pe, pe, sade, sade, over and over and over until then I would cover this up with a piece of paper, the top row, and then I'd be like cough, mem, noon, pe, sade, cough, mem, noon, pe, sade, until I was starting to just get that recognition down. And then whenever I would come up on a letter like this, come up on this one and the word say Derek, I would see that and be like, okay, that's a cough, final form, that's a K. So I could begin to just build just through constant repetition. And that is what has been very beneficial to me in doing this. And then I do it for vocab. So let me scroll down here to some vocab, kind of talk about that. That's how to write the words or letters. This might be making you dizzy. Sorry about that. Here we go. Here's the vocab. So we have core vocab. So we got Adam, Adam, human, Adam. And so I would take these and just break it off. So maybe these first 5 here, and just work on those and over and over and over until I got them down, until I was not missing them any at all. And then I would go on to the next group. Then I would combine. And how this works out in memory verses is simple. Phrases. I would do a single phrase over and over and over. Then I would do the next phrase in the sentence over and over and over. Then I combine the phrases. And so you can do that very easily there. And now I want to go try to find the table of contents here and go to some new stuff, maybe. Because what we've been learning lately is similar way I have to work to memorize it, and that is through these paradigms. So here is my first paradigm here that I've been working on lately. And in these paradigms, these are charts that help you. And this is where I'm at currently. This is what I've just finished up this chapter, and I'm on the next chapter, but I'm still studying this quite a bit. But Greek is the same way with having paradigms. So you have a column for the singular, a column for the plural, and I know you can't see it all, but we'll get there. And then you have like third masculine, third feminine, second masculine, second feminine, first common. So it could be masculine or feminine. And so when we look at this, third masculine singular, then third masculine plural is where we sit here. And on these, they are straight memory. And all of these are the same word. And you notice they look different. And what we're looking at is just the different characteristics. So the third masculine actually has nothing added on. That's just the word as it would appear like a vocab word. But then you see this one's a little different, these different marks. So we got the ah here at the end, the comets with the hey. And then we have the ta, and then we have the t ending, then we have the t ending there. And so what I would just work on this and try to get little pieces of it at a time as I went. So cathal, 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 cathala, 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 cathal, cathala, cathal, cathala, cathal, cathala. Then we got cathalta, cathalta. So we got cathal, cathala, cathalta, or cathalt. No, cathalta. My bad. That's cathalt. So, and I would just over and over and over, and it's kind of a tongue twister in Hebrew. That's where I've been struggling. As I start tripping over my words, there. But I would just do one word till I could just say that word easy. Then I'd do the second one. Then I'd do the 2. Then I'd do the 3rd and do the 3. 4th, do the 4. And then, so basically how I memorize these is I go straight down this side, then I go straight down this side, and you can see the ending of that right there. Just rote memorization. And as you do this, sometimes little things will help you to key in and be memory forms. So sometimes a word kind of sounds like something in my mind, and that's what I use to memorize the definition. Now, I am rote memorizing, but that's kind of in the back of my head circulating to kind of give me an image of that. So cathal is to kill. So we got like he killed is essential right there. She killed. Um, so cathal kind of sounds kill. You kind of got the that sound in there with just kind of the Q sound there at the beginning, but it still kind of has the rough sound there. So that could be beneficial to doing languages. And when you do Greek or Hebrew, when you come into these paradigms, if you're doing it outside of a class, I tried to do Greek outside of a class my first time, and I just could not get it. One thing I did not get is you got to memorize paradigms. You've got to have them down perfect. So I'm really working hard on my Hebrew paradigms right now. So that's where I'm at. They are not the easiest thing, but they are very crucial. So I am trying to get it down as best I can. Vocab, I just crossed over 300 vocab words in my stack. I'm not going to say I have them all down perfect, but what I do as well with that after long term vocab, and this has been amazing for me learning language. Long term vocab, I go through them, and words I'm getting easy, I'm just putting in the back of the stack. Words I'm struggling with, I'm constantly putting aside. And after I've noticed, hey, I've gone through my stack a few times, I would take the stack of the words I struggled with and just work on those. So words that like Adam, Adam, human, that's an easy word. It's one I have down. I'm not worried about missing that word. So I'm not worried about reviewing that one over and over and over. I want to hit it from time to time to cement it in my brain even more. But those words that I couldn't quite get that easy, I need to go back and work on those. And so I will focus on those, and then I'll break those up into smaller chunks if I have a big stack. Hopefully I don't. But if I do, I'll break those up in smaller stacks and just work in my small chunks, get the other ones, work on them. And then once I feel like I've got the whole trouble stack well, I'll go shuffle it back in with the whole stack and then go through it again. And any more trouble words I'll pull out, set aside. And so that's how I've been kind of my regular study routine is just working on the memorization of words, working on the memorization of paradigms, small chunks, very repetitious. Try to put little tells in your mind throughout. One I remember very well that was used in my Greek class is actually for the word pollen. And pollen, uh, it's PALIN if we were to put in English letters. And the word translates to again. That's kind of we memorize again. And my professor told us, just think of Sarah Palin, Palin. He's like, she's in the news again. Every time she's on there, she's in the news again. And I don't know if you see that so much now, but I remember growing up, she was in the news a lot with her in politics and stuff. So I just think pollen again, using that kind of in the back of my head. But there's still the repetitious things that do it. So try to put little things to kind of grab your brain and then repetition. That's what I've been doing for this class. That's what's worked for me in Greek, and it's working for me now. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And that's where I'm at right now. Halfway through the class, I'm starting to get a large bit of vocabulary done. I'm starting to get the paradigms. And so I want to end this episode, this update, a little bit of a longer one, but lots of good stuff is happening. Had some good questions. And if you have any questions about what I've been doing and things like that, drop them down below. I'd love to answer. And maybe you have some ideas or just some thoughts, and they help me. It helps me to think through these things as well. But I want to end with I'm trying to memorize Psalm 1 in Hebrew. And so here's what I'm at. It's partway through verse 2. So I've got all of verse 1 and partway through verse 2 is what I'm going to attempt right now. So I got Ashrei Ha'ish Asher Lo Halak Ba'atzat Rashaim Uv Derek Hataim Lo Amad Uv Moshev Leitzim Lo Yashav Ki Im Batorat Yehovah Hepso Uv Torito. There it is. Hepso Uv Torito. That's kind of the last bit I've added. So there's all of verse 1 and part of verse 2 of Psalm 1 memorized. Trying to get all 6 verses before the end of the class. So I think I'll do it. But thank you all for joining me. Hope this maybe helps or inspires you in some way or is just informative to you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can catch in the next update in 2 weeks because we're doing every other week an update of my journey learning Hebrew. If you got any questions or anything, I like to respond to the comments or I might save it for the next video if I think it just merits part of the video. So I thank you all for joining me and I hope to see y'all next time.